This is a performance video of Little Sunflower by Freddie Hubbard. In this tune, we're going to be experimenting with the so what voicings. I'll go ahead and give a performance of it for you first. You'll hear the bass, you'll hear the melody, and you'll hear me comping using some so what voicings. Then we'll talk about the so what voicings, play a little bit together. I'll let you play on your own, and then I'll show you some different ways that you can invert the so what voicings to play the melody and to get more color out of the so what voicings in your comping. Once again, generally, so what voicings are used for comping, not so much for playing the melody, but we'll show you a way that you can actually invert some of these so what voicings to get some melodic sounds. So here's a performance of Little Sunflower. Once again, you'll hear the bass and the melody, and I'll comp through it using some very basic so what voicings. So here it goes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a basic comping technique using the so what voicings. Let's go ahead and look through what that is. The first chord, as you can see, for the first 16 bars, the first two A sections, is a D minor chord only. Remember, the so what voicing is built of all perfect fourths with a major third stacked on top. You start from the root of the chord. So for a basic D so what voicing, we're going to go D, G, C, F, and a major third on top, A. Altogether, that forms our D so what voicing, and that's built from an F pentatonic scale. F, G, A, C, D. There's three pentatonic scales that'll sound pretty good on a D Dorian mode. One is F, the other one is C, and the other one is G. So we can fashion so what voicings not only out of the F pentatonic scale, but also out of the C pentatonic scale and the G pentatonic scale. The two other so what voicings that are made out of the C and G pentatonic scales are A, which is the C pentatonic scale, C, D, E, G, A, and the G pentatonic scale, which makes our E so what voicing, G, A, B, D, E. So altogether we have the D so what voicing, the E so what voicing, and the A so what voicing that are going to sound pretty nice in comping through that A section. There's really only three chords in this tune. Let's move on to the E flat major. For E flat major, what pentatonic scales sound good for that chord, or for that scale? Well, of course, the E flat pentatonic scale is going to sound good. And for that one, it's the C so what voicing. E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. So the C so what voicing will sound good on an E flat major 7th chord. The other pentatonic scale that will sound good on an E flat major chord is a B flat pentatonic scale. The G so what voicing is the B flat pentatonic scale starting from G. B flat, C, D, F, and G. So on the E flat, C pentatonic and G pentatonic will be the two good sounding chords. The next chord, D major, just takes everything down a half step. So the C pentatonic scale, or the C so what voicing, will change to B. And the G so what voicing will change to F sharp. So on D major, the B so what voicing and the F sharp so what voicing are the two voicings that sound good. So let's review all of that. For D minor, we have the D so what voicing, the E so what voicing, and the A so what voicing. For E flat, we have the C so what voicing and the G so what voicing. For D major, we have the B so what voicing and the F sharp so what voicing. So it's a total of 7 so what voicings we'd need to know. Let's go ahead and play through the tune now. I'll tell you which so what voicing to play, and I'll play it along with you. Okay? We'll start with the D so what voicing and just stay on that for a moment. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, sorry. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Stay on the D. Let's move up to the E. Let's move up to the A. And let's move down to the D again. Let's go up to C. And down to B. Down to G. And down to F sharp. Let's make our way down to D again. 2, 3, 4. How about up to A? How about E and D? So go ahead and spend some time messing around with the D, E, and A so what voicings. For E flat, that's C and G. And for D, that's B and F sharp. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and play the track and let you play along with it using whichever so what voicings that you feel comfortable with on the chords. Just remember, for the D minor, D, E, and A. For the E flat, C and G. And for the D, B and F sharp. Go ahead and give it a try. Let's see what it sounds like. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And move to the bridge. Here we go. E flat. And down to D. Back up to E flat. And back to D. Last A section, D minor. Let's play that again, D minor. Okay, how'd that go? A total of 7 chords to work on there. Now another thing you can do with the so what voicings is invert them in different ways. Let's go to the D so what voicing. We can just progressively move this chord up the scale. Here's the D so what voicing you might call root position. Here it is in first inversion. F, A, D, G, and C. Here it is in its next inversion. G, C, F, A, and D. Here it is in its next inversion, all perfect fourths. A, D, G, C, F. And in its final inversion, C, F, A, D, and G. Here is all those inversions, one after another. And you can also play it in a downward fashion as well. Here's what the so what inversions just on D sound like on that first section. I'll go ahead and play it without the melody this time. Here's what the inversions all sound like, just working their way up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. On the E flat, we have the C. So we can invert the C so what voicing and get lots of different color just out of the C so what voicing as applied to the E flat major chord. And on the D, we take that B so what voicing and invert it. So you can experiment with inversions of the so what voicings also. I'll let you go ahead and try that on your own. You can also invert some of the voices in the middle. For example, we could do something like this. Let's see, on this chord right here, we might do something like this. Let's see. Like this, for example. Here's a so what voicing where the right hand is inverted. That gives us a nice sound. You could probably find a way to harmonize every note of this melody using some kind of inversion of a so what chord. Here's what it might sound like. One more time. Let's try that with the track. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so on and so forth. So I'll let you experiment with inversions of the so what chord, both in comping and in playing the melody. But for right now, just concentrate on the 3 different so what voicings that work on a minor chord, and the 2 different voicings that work on major chords. I'll go ahead and let you practice it alone, and I'll look forward to hearing Little Sunflower, you comping, and possibly even playing the melody if you have a chance. Good luck on Little Sunflower. I look forward to hearing you play it.